My name's Keith Morton. I'm a part of the Warren Conservation Commission, and there's a few other commission members here. Butch Lombardi is our chair, and Gene Leffers and Dave Weed helped put all this together, so I'm glad you're all here. And our hosts, our guides for this are Gregg Gerrett and Doug Still, and thank you both for coming out. What we're going to do from here is just head down along the side, the right side of the building, head down towards the bike path. There's a little boardwalk, and we'll spend a little time there, cross over, and another boardwalk goes out into the bay a little bit. And Doug and Gregg are just going to talk to us about that. We might move up and down the bike path a little bit, but it's pretty much right in one single location. And we'll be thinking a lot about the trees and the different things growing there, but also about what is going on with climate change. It's a really sort of canary in the mine shaft space for what's happening with sea level rise, and thinking about this wonderful community resource we have in the bike path, and that has some influence on what happens with sea level rise and things moving sort of uphill. So we'll talk a little bit about all that. Any questions or anything before we go?
We thought we might just introduce ourselves.
Yeah, I've got just a tiny bit to say. So Doug, I first connected with him. He had stepped down after a 17-year career as the forester for the city of Providence, and I had read a report that he helped create in 2008, I think it was, that was the city of Providence's forestry plan, which is an amazing document in all kinds of different ways, partly because it's taking into account climate, and it's also taking into account a lot of social justice kinds of questions as a part of urban environments. And now Doug is started a company that does consulting called This Old Tree Consulting, and has a logo and everything. And more fun even for most of us, started a podcast called This Old Tree that comes out on is it a monthly basis?
Monthly now.
Yep. And it's really a lot of fun. Doug talks to people who've been paying attention to these really, really old trees all over the world, and all of them have stories, and that's pretty amazing. Kind of real random kind of collection of spaces that they're in, and so thank you, Doug, for being here. And Gregg, I've known for seems like forever.
Probably about 25 years.
only about, but Gregg is here as a naturalist, although his bio that he sent me said I'm not really a naturalist, and he's one of those people you ask him, are you this? Nope. Are you that? Nope. But he does a little of this and a little of that, and all of it kind of comes together. But among other things, Gregg, I think, is well known around Rhode Island for having helped start the Buy Nothing Day that now happens every year, just right around Thanksgiving time on the State House property, and it's become quite a big event, but also has been driving an agenda for the state around composting now for the whole 25 years I think I've known you, and that's starting to bear some fruit. But more recently, Gregg's interests have really been around thinking about the ways that the economy of the state and of local places around here connect to what's happening with climate change, and really trying to get public planning happening so that we're ahead of the curve on that as much as we can be. So spending a lot of time in the legislature these last few weeks, next couple of weeks. So. But anyway, thank you both for being here. Anything else you want to say, or just get us started?
Yeah, just wanted to point out last year we started doing these Rhode Island forest walks, and there's a Facebook page if anyone here is on Facebook. It's Rhode Island Forest Walks, and right now it's just whenever we want to go somewhere, we're like, let's do that, and then it's not really like a lecture or anything anymore or anything like that. We just go and we walk and look around, right?
Do you go to any places in Tiverton?
Or East Bay?
We can.
Yeah, Tiverton, like there's a Garden Gray, Queenamo Woods,
Cassett Ridge,
Emily Rudker. I mean, there's a lot.
Basket
Yeah.
Swamp,
Full park.
which is woods despite the name.
Yeah.
Yeah, I get to most of them occasionally, but haven't never tried leading walks on them.
Well,
I'll give you my
have to make
card
that
at the
next
end
on the
and you
list.
can invite me. The other thing I do is I do video, and it's mostly wild animals. I hardly ever take pictures of people, so I'm not asking for permission because I'm not going to take your picture. I just take pictures of the animals, and they're on a YouTube channel called Mashasa Critters. And if any of you would like my card so you can check it out, I'm happy to show you, give you a card. Other than that, it's kind of like I do a lot of policy work, and it's incredibly busy this time of year. No, I'm ready to walk.
So I think I'm going to be doing like tree identification kind of stuff, and so any questions you have about that, it'll be winter tree identification at this point. And Greg's talking about.
I'm going to talk about climate and sea level rise and birds, and I'm sure there's people who know more than I do about all of those things here. So that will be even more fun, because then I get to learn. So.
Head on out. But you.
We're going to go. Are we going through the building?
Lots of things that need a real closed forest, but they can come right up to the edge and kind of reinforce each other and kind of get a synergy. I'm going to set up Merlin and see how many birds we hear.
Oh, yeah. Love Merlin.
Who's Merlin?
Merlin is a little app that goes on your phone that if you you just turn it on and it will identify all the birds that you hear. And if you watch it, it'll like light up when it's a bird, or you get a whole list of everything you've seen. And you can use it in a variety of ways, including like taking a picture of it or something. But since my camera doesn't work, all I do is use it for the voice. And since I got another camera, I use the camera on this end. So we'll turn it on and see how many things we hear.
Does it identify humans talking?
It doesn't. It's really interesting because you get a sonogram with it. And so I do a lot of work with toads, and of course it won't identify the toads, but you can see the signature of the toads. You know, it's got a very regular signature of when the toads call, so you can use it that way. And you know, you just have to probably program, and they do have programs for toads too. I just don't happen to have one because I know the the two kinds of toads and frogs that use the pool I work on, so I don't have any problem with that. But you know, kind of a typical low forest, wet and viney, and then you get out into the salt marsh. Shall we head into the swamps? Back to the marsh. Swamps have trees, marshes have no trees. Salt marsh, by definition, will not, but you know, then you could have mangroves in salt water, and you can have other kinds of stuff. This part is fresh water, and so it means it's a little above sea level. Won't be for long, but you know that's why you got all the skunk cabbage, and then you get into the grass, the Phragmites and the Spartina, and I think this is probably Phragmites rather than Spartina. And Phragmites is kind of just shows that the drainage has been messed with, which has been farmed and bike path and everything. So this is above the bike path, so this is you know the messed up area. They haven't messed up the salt marsh quite as much.
ones are shorter and not as thick as the.
Thick in terms of
invasive.
the amount, the density of the
Yeah,
plants.
yeah, they're spread
They're
out.
spread
more.
out
They're not
more?
like there's actually there was when Save the Bay opened up the marsh out here. There was I think they're right along the bike path a stand of native Phragmites. It was the only place. This and one or two other places. The only place I think in Rhode Island where there were native Phragmites.
You know, there's Spartina. There's at least two kinds of Spartina, and I think there's also another kind that's imported.
I think the other thing with the invasive Phragmites will choke everything out, and the native ones
Much
tend
better
to spread out
behaved.
and exist with other stuff that grows.
So I wanted to talk about one of my favorite trees, and this is the perfect place to do it, which is the Tupelo or black Tupelo, Mesa sylvatica, and this is a little bit of a repeat from a year and a half ago for anyone else who came on that walk. But there's some amazing Tupelos right here. These two right here, that one, that's one of the biggest ones I've seen. I started learning about Tupelos on Cape Cod, out in Wellfleet and Truro. I started finding groves of them. And I had planted Tupelo trees as a street tree in Providence for many years, and I always thought, oh, well, you know, it's a native tree, whatever that means. I'm getting it from the nursery. So it was really interesting to me to see it just growing in its own natural environment, and I didn't realize that they like to grow near the ocean. And I found them in groves of trees, so there would be like a grove of Tupelos, and realized that they propagate through their root systems. They'll send out roots and then new trees will grow, and that's how you get like this grove colony of Tupelos. But they'll also, like here, they may be connected underground, they probably are, but they're in and amongst other types of trees too, and they can do that. And so I started learning all kinds of things about Tupelo trees, which is that they are the oldest lived hardwood east of the Mississippi. So they can get very old. Some of them get 600 or 700 years old. And it's a type of tree that can grow in the understory for many years in the shade, and it's okay. It's never like the dominant tree anywhere. It's always usually mixed in with others. And then if there's a gap, you know, if there's a storm or something and it reaches for the sky, it will then become more of a dominant tree. And like I said, it'll send out the roots. And it really likes wet soils and places that are temporarily like this, you know, very wet. And then will dry out. And it has a very deep taproot and can survive in that area. What I learned also was that it can also grow on the slopes of hills, and it doesn't have to grow in it. And it's really very adaptable, and it grows from here all the way down the East Coast into Texas, northern Florida, and then there's another species of Tupelo there, but I'm blanking on the name of it, where they get Tupelo honey, and like the song Tupelo Honey. And so that brings me to its flowers, and insects and birds love the flowers and the fruit, and so it's a great wildlife tree, super important native tree to the environment. And it's, I think, one of the most beautiful trees in the fall. It gets this beautiful magenta color, sort of reddish color. It's one of the first to turn, and pretty spectacular. And this is really an amazing grove of them right here. And in the winter, you can tell a Tupelo, since that is what we have to deal with right now. The leaves come out on little stalks. So there's branches and twigs, and then these little stalks where the leaves come out. So it really looks very twiggy when you look at it against the sky. So like here, you look up and you can see all those little twigs that come out. And that's how I know in the winter that's definitely a tupelo tree. That and the branches kind of like twist in this really interesting way. Sometimes much more than this.
Yep.
Look around. But it can be very dramatic. Yeah, they're all in here. I can see, those very tall, straight ones. If you look at the top against the sky, there's all those little twigs. Tupelo. And then red maple. So they're probably related to each other.
The red maples have
Genetically.
started to flower already, so they're among the first. So.
Yeah, this is the red maple here, which red maples love swampy areas too. And red maples have green leaves, but there's usually something red about it all year round, and right now it's the flowers. And you can even see them. I saw them driving along the highway. It's starting to look red, and those are the red maples.
What you always hope is that, things aren't here perfectly flat. So when you've got, sea level rise coming up through here, I assume this is going to be a while still because we're on the other side of the bike path, but not very long. And the tree, as the swamp as the water moves up the hill, hopefully the trees will move up the hill. And, so if it goes at the right kind of speed, the trees can keep ahead of it, the sand dunes can keep ahead of it. If it comes too fast, they probably can't adapt. And that's what we don't know is how fast will a tupelo grove go up the hill. And most of the problem mostly is that lots of the places are now cut off. This one you got a hill still. But, if you got a road here, a big road or houses, it cuts it off, and there's no place for the sand dunes to move, there's no place for the salt marsh to move, there's no place for the tupelo to move. And that's what I guess we're facing. That's one of the real worries. And of course now, people are trying to save the sand dunes, but like up in Salisbury where they saved the sand dune, and the next day it washed away again. And I think they did it again. So, it's kind of like you have to. It's like an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure.
Does this area actually flush to the bay, or is this sealed off?
I don't really know.
It's
I
pretty much-
assume it's connected because you got the phragmites there.
It's pretty much sealed off. There really isn't there's a culvert, I think, further down. No, it comes down from up above and goes through right around where the path goes out. And then there's another one down here at North Farm. But this is
Mostly
impounded. Yeah, this water is like impounded, basically.
Now, the phragmites don't like salt water, right?
That's true, yeah.
So that would be a hint.
Yep.
That's what Save the Bay did with the Jacobs Point Marsh, and that's a good example of it because what they did was they opened up
The culverts.
the culverts
To get it
and
flushing
they
with the
took
salt
out
water.
the invasive phragmites, and you
Yeah.
can really see the difference because if you walk down the path, the part that was remediated is on the north side, and there's not much phragmite. There's a few here and there, but right across the path, which nothing was done, it's just thick with phragmites. So you can really see how much difference it makes by increasing the saltwater flow into a marsh and trying to keep the fresh water, and actually have the fresh water exit it too.
And he's talking about
Shall we
Maryland's
keep
path, which the access is down that way a little bit, and you can walk all the way down to the shore. And you'll pass over several culverts that were put in to flush.
That's what they're doing on the Cape too.
Yeah, they're doing it in a lot of places.
Yeah.
They're trying to just
Well, that's a good way to.
increase the health of the salt marshes.
Right. Natural way.
Doug, those are tupelos on the other side too, right?
I think there's some more. I can see them. You can see it right up against
Yeah.
the sky.
Yeah, in that side of the ospreys, you hear it chirping. They built in one of the tupelos up there. They've got it's a broken one, but
and the osprey.
Top of that tupelo, you can see what's left of it. They nested up there. See the nest? They've been nesting up there for 3 or 4 years now, but the top keeps breaking. So you know that was much more substantial up there at one time.
That one's just
So is that
incredible,
sound
the bark
the-
on that
It's the osprey.
tupelo.
Yeah, if you go down to the end in the fall and look back this way at sunset, this whole area is red.
Oh wow. It's hard to find a better collection of them.
And they go all the way through to the far end over there, that's above the path.
Right
Yep.
at the top.
There's a couple of lone ones out there, by the one out there, there's a few out there by themselves. See?
Oh yeah.
You have an osprey. Always a good thing to have.
The ospreys increasing in numbers.
Osprey almost were extinct from DDT 40 years ago, and they've come back tremendously. And they are actually a bird probably as much of a wider range than almost any other bird in the world. They're found on shoreline, on coastal areas everywhere.
They're found on every continent but the Antarctica.
Yeah. They winter in Argentina and come back here in the spring.
What do they eat?
Fish and more fish. They're incredibly good at catching fish.
That's probably
The
the
young one?
no,
No,
not
that would
yet.
that's too early for the young ones.
That would be till June. This is probably the female from this nest up here because they've nested up here for
Yeah.
4 years at least.
You get them out with their wings out, they're pretty impressive.
5-foot wings.
They actually will nest. There's a place right in Providence that they nest, like right next to the Job Lot Plaza in Pawtucket on Morley Field, which we're trying to use the osprey to keep them from stealing the park. The city wants to close the park,
Oh, yeah, around here.
but we're fighting them real hard.
They clean their nesting site when they come back, so he's just hanging around.
There's nothing in there.
No.
No, it's a little early yet for eggs.
Yeah.
They use the red-tailed hawks in the burial ground where I work. There was a nest that's been used, and it wasn't used at all last year, but this year they're going to use it again. You know, it's a different pair, and you can tell it's a different pair of red tails because this pair is the most skittish red tails I've ever seen. You know, like that one let us sit there. Red tails always, not always, but you get lots of times with it. This pair that we have in there now, not once have they sat anywhere close to me to get pictures. I mean, I get pictures because this thing will get them from really far away, but no close pictures. They wouldn't let you like walk. They would have been long gone. That they're all losing their tops says this is actually probably right at the edge anyway until it gets the strongest winds in the storm, and that could be what's breaking them off rather than the sea level rise. But you know, because there's still stuff in there that's growing that looks like it's fresh water stuff. You know, the skunk cabbage and the little green stuff there, the grasses and the moss. That tells you it's not salt water yet. But the wind isn't new, you know, I mean, I mean, the edge of a forest against something open is always going to have a lot of wind damage. What kind of trees are these, Doug?
These are tupelos.
These are tupelos.
Yeah.
Okay.
All
So this is still
tupelo.
fresh
And
water.
that's a red maple back there.
Yeah.
It's basically the two that are in throughout.
Yeah.
But,
Red maples are always in the water. They love it.
There's an interesting shrub in here that's throughout the sweet pepper bush.
Oh, yeah.
Colonies of them, there probably are in here. The like wet areas too,
Simmons
usually near ponds.
Simmons Pond in Little Compton. If you go in there the right time, there's so many, it actually smells nice.
When you
Yeah.
first,
When you
first
go
got
in.
there, when you first go in,
There's
you
a
walked in
ton
last
on
year, it was
either
like,
side.
Oh, that smells nice, and then they had a sign there. saying
Yeah.
what
We
kind
just
of-
happened to come at the
fragrant.
right time. They were
Yeah,
flowering.
Yeah,
I
and they
think
were
it's
very
end of
fragrant.
June. Probably end of June.
I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think it was
So he pointed out this tree here, and this one is an English oak, which is not native here, Quercus rober. And do you know why? He said he's seen it along the coast. Do you know why it's along the coast? I just learned this. I'm so excited. This winter, they used to use English oak, like the acorns, for ballast in ships, for weight and for other reasons. So they were in the ships, and then if there was a wreck or some reason that, you know, the acorns get out and flow. And so I know in Eastham and Cape Cod, apparently there used to be a whole grove of English oak trees. And then they got a disease or something, a lot of them were gone. But I found one there, and I was like, that is strange. And here's another old one.
Yeah, that's a pretty old tree.
It probably, it's, you know, not native to here at all, so it likely was from a ship. Pretty old.
I guess if you got
Probably 100 years
acorns as your ballast, if you get really hungry, you can make some food. But then again, you need fresh water for mostly to when you're going to do that, because you got to like rinse out the tannic acid out of most acorns. I don't know. Maybe there are some that are low tannic acids, but I don't know if the English oak are low tannic acid.
Just had a comment.
But there was shipping that used to come out of Warren many years
Oh, lots of
ago.
it.
Yeah.
Went all over the
it's
world.
sunny.
So that ballast thing is probably...
And it could have just
Come
gone
down from there.
all the way up to Providence. I mean,
Yes,
an
yeah.
acorn could float this far.
Yeah.
Wow.
I mean, you know, this is the area where you got some of the like the terrapins, and I found one up in Providence one day.
Yeah.
You know, it was
The
like
Diamondbacks?
yeah, the
Yeah.
Diamondbacks. Yeah,
Are you familiar with the project in Barrington?
Yes,
Yeah,
I
the
am.
Doug Rayner
right.
Preserve,
And
yeah.
so when I made a video of the one up in Providence, the guys at DEM said that they'd never seen one in Providence before.
It just made so much
Nature
sense
has
to me
its
when
way,
I learned about that.
Yes.
It's got all the stiles sticking out. Or if you look at the other one back on the boardwalk way back when we started, it's all full of anthers, which will be shedding pollen. And these are hoping for some pollen.
Okay.
Everybody's hoping for some.
So what exactly happened here?
I don't know. It could be like, you know, a gust of wind took it out. It could be water. Could be some kind of like weird animal ritual. I mean, any of these things are possible.
They're having a little convention.
Convention.
So we've seen deer down here
Yeah.
before.
And that could be, you know, they could trample like that and eat. But, you know, I don't know.
That looks pretty comprehensive.
It does. It does look comprehensive, more than like,
Yeah. They had a meeting.
yeah.
I don't remember.
More than the
this.
bullfrogs attended.
I've been down here. I've never seen this before.
Well, it's have to be.
You know, they can not have success because the water like came up this much. You know, and that's really all it takes when you're that close
Yeah,
to the
that's where
edge.
their nests are in the grass.
They have a big study going on. It's probably, what, 3 or 4 years old?
The one at
Yeah, I
Elk Farm.
remember. Yeah, I think they do it here.
Yeah,
Well,
they
we've
do.
heard, We've heard some kind of a bird in there on occasion. Would it, like a rail?
There could be like
Would that go
some
in
water
that
birds
environment?
here,
Yeah,
and there could, you know, I mean, that's why I would recommend Merlin. If you can hear them,
yeah.
you know, you
Yeah.
just check them out. It's like, what
Yeah.
do we
Because
got?
it's not something we've ever
Right
been
now,
able
the
to
only thing
see.
I've gotten is crows and osprey. They just took off.
They look much bigger.
Oh yeah, they're amazing flyers too.
There's a platform on there, but it's hard to figure out.
And so I bet that English oak dates from before then.
Yep. Yeah, well,
And the other ones are just offspring of that,
yeah. No,
the
yeah,
old one.
right.
So it's probably 200-year-old tree almost.
a real big one. That wouldn't be surprising. It's not
Yeah.
a great place to be growing, so it wouldn't have grown hugely.
Yeah, it wouldn't have floated over there. So it was cut off.
Yep. And, you know, the other thing is, though, is all those numbers are going faster. You know, sea level rise from 1930 to 1980 was at one speed. Since 1980, it's continually getting faster. And, you know, you read the things about Antarctica and Greenland, and there's no surprise there. Plus, you know, sea level rise is not only the melting of the glaciers on land. The ones on the ocean don't affect it. But it's also that as the water gets warmer, it expands. You know, it just takes up more room. And so the two of those combined are doing sea level rise. I mean, I think eventually how fast the glaciers melt will overwhelm the expansion rate. But right now, expansion is still a considerable part of it. You know, and what happened last year? You hear on the weather, off of Miami, the water temperature was 101. 101. I mean, wow.
I went swimming in North Carolina in August. It was unbelievably warm. I was like bath water.
Yeah, it is. It's bath
It's like,
water.
this isn't right.
It's not refreshing, and it doesn't cool you off.
No.
And you know, as heat gets worse, we're going to need more and more places with water that's cool enough to cool people off. You know, I mean, you know, Phoenix actually hired somebody to deal with heat deaths. That's their job, is to prevent heat deaths. I mean, that's the first American city to hire somebody specifically for that. And that's because the number of people who died of heat deaths last year in Phoenix doubled from the previous record.
So hot the cacti were dying.
Yeah, everything.
You're going to have to leave this with a positive note.
Rhode Island has a really good law. You know, Act on Climate has real targets. And as much as the legislature would love to slow them down, and the governor would love to slow them down, if you keep the pressure on, they won't slow down. And we need to keep that pressure on. And, you know, we got a bunch of good people doing it, but they can always use more help. So help them push the state on climate. I've been doing this year focusing on the economy. I do a lot of work on the economy, and basically I'm convinced that we can't create prosperous communities in the future if we don't put climate and justice at the center of our economic development. You know, you can't use it as a sideline. You have to kind of go all in on it. And if you do, we're going to be okay. If we don't, it's going to get much worse. And so, you know, the thing that people get depressed when they feel hopeless about it, and the way to not feel hopeless is to go out and do something. You know, to go out and harangue those legislators and write letters to the governor and remind Congress of what their job is to actually govern the country and help us solve problems. They don't seem to be doing a very good job of it. At least one party has decided it doesn't want to govern anymore. It just wants to loot. I'm not supposed to get that political here, but I don't care. You know, and so
what's the biggest challenge of the Warren Conservation Commission this year?
Greg, not to interrupt, what would be your speculation about the future of a place like Jacobs Point then?
it's going to flood. I mean, there's kind of no doubt about it. I mean, the water comes up to here probably almost every day, or, you know, every big storm. And, you know, it's not very high. You know, where you can see that line of houses. The line of houses is probably 15 feet above sea level at the most, because the Phragmites is tall. And, you know, they got 100 years. They might have 150 years. You know, anything that's within less than 10 feet of sea level rise, it doesn't have 100 years left. If we don't, I mean, if we stop burning fossil fuels the way we could, if we wanted to, there's still enough extra carbon dioxide in the atmosphere to keep it warming for another 100 years. but after about 100 years, if we stop now, after 100 years, it would start to cool off. So, you know, and the whole idea is how low can we keep the peak? You know, if the peak goes up 5 or 6 degrees, much of the world's agriculture disappears. And if the world's agriculture disappears, so does the food supply.
What'd you say, 5 or 6 degrees?
Yeah. You know, if it goes up that much, there's not much left. You know, if you can keep it to 2, you know, you lost something, but you haven't lost everything.
I think they said right now we're on track to hit 3 by 2100.
Yeah, but you know, if the Koch brothers get their way,
it'll be 5 or 6 easy.
Yeah, you know, and what's going on is that every time they make a prediction of how fast it will rise, how fast temperatures will rise, it goes faster.
So I think myself that one of the big questions for this particular kind of environment is it's going to be some sea level rise, but the other thing that everybody's been tracking, you know, paying attention to kind of publicly for maybe the last decade or so is the increasing intensity of storms. And with warming, hurricane seasons are moving a little more north, a little more north. So,
and they're getting longer.
You know, and this coming hurricane season is one example. They're predicting 13 to 14 significant storms and probably 4 sizable hurricanes, 1 or 2 of which could move up the East Coast. And let's hope not. Like, that would be
bad.
What we don't want, right? But one of the questions is going to be is how resilient is this coastline to increasingly intense storms? And some of that is beyond our control. Just, you know, it's going to, storms have so much power that trying to manage them is just doesn't make a lot of sense. But we know largely from Louisiana that I think Gregg was mentioning a little bit ago, what they've been experiencing on the coastline down there, that there's a lot of ways that you can harden your coastline by doing things that are ecologically, environmentally restorative to the habitat there.
Restore your salt marsh, restore your mangroves.
So this kind of marsh is not only interesting ecologically just because it has ospreys and all these different species of plants, and it sort of is this kind of environment is one of the most ecologically rich and diverse that you can find anywhere. But also it's what protects everything
it's a
up
buffer.
there from the worst effects. And when the rain comes back down, this is what filters all the water out before it heads out into the bay, and it keeps, you know, it's sort of a natural buffer and purifier. So I think, you know, what everybody in Rhode Island knows is we have over 400 miles of coastline. And so if the focus is on the increasing the robustness of the environments along that coastline, I think it can go a long, long way to mitigating some of the worst impacts of the storm. So a lot of that kind of thing is within our control. So for the Conservation Commission, you know, we're just like a little teeny unit inside of the smallest town in Rhode Island, so we don't count for a whole lot. But it is just keep banging that gong and just and keep ourselves educated and do things like this.
You can be leaders.
Yeah.
Sitting in these.
Is there anything else you want?
Anybody want one of my cars?